Good afternoon, guys, and happy Thursday to all of your sunshiny faces. I told you guys how my parents are going on vacation for their anniversary. So it's a lot shorter than last year because last year was like a big, big anniversary. So this year they're just going to, I think they're like 3 hours away in Galena, which they've went to a few times before. Like, I think they went 2 years ago. They went there, and I think they've went like maybe once or twice as well prior to that. So it's somewhere that they're kind of more familiar with, and it's not somewhere that's super far away either. So it's not something like you got to sit in a car ride for a really long time. And my dad is not a huge fan of flying like me. Like, I've never flown, and my dad has hesitantly flown a few times. I think he flew the most recently, he flew once for work. They had to go to, I think, Atlanta. But and it's funny too though, because his boss is actually from like England, and so he's flown a lot, and like, again, internationally and stuff like that. And he's been on a lot of planes, whereas my dad has not. Like, my dad might have flown maybe, can count on one hand probably how many times he's flown, but he did that Atlanta trip a handful of years ago. And his boss said that was probably the worst turbulence that he's ever had. And so my dad was like, yeah, I don't like flying. I really don't want to fly again. Like, that was a really bad experience for somebody that already does not like flying and is not like accustomed to flying, and somebody that was on the plane that actually said like that was some of the worst turbulence they'd ever experienced. So my parents are maybe a little bit more limited in where they end up going on vacation and stuff like that. Not that they wouldn't go further away or to other places and stuff like that. It's just my mom has like no problem with flying. It's that my dad doesn't really like to. I think like he would probably still, like still fly, like if my mom was like, oh, like let's go here, something like that, and they're like, we can't really drive there, or it's gonna take us 3 days to get there. We've pretty much wasted the trip, kind of thing, or whatever. I mean, like, unless you're doing like a really long road trip, like, a couple week long road trip or something like that, it's not like, you can't really like go and be like, we're gonna drive like to California. Like, I mean, that's a long trip. So like, I know Matthew, I think, drove to Texas, and that was like a full day, I think, that they ended up driving for. I went to Toronto, which is, from Chicago, not that far, but it was still like, I think, a 9-hour drive or something like that. And so we drove there all the way, but then back we stopped at a hotel, like I think maybe in Michigan or something like that. And so back we stopped there, and then again, to second leg of the journey, ended up getting home like on that second day. But again, too, from here it's not that insanely far. Like my parents too, last year they went to Tennessee, I think. Jack and my parents one year, they went to North Carolina, I think. I want to say possibly. Yeah, the furthest I've been, and my dad has been out of the country. He has been to Canada as well, not on the same trip as me, but I'm the only person in my family outside of, again, just my dad, that has actually been out of the country. Everyone else in my family has traveled in the continental United States. So nobody's been, like I said, outside of that. Like Jack, like I said, he's been probably, I mean, Matthew's been further than me. He also flew to Florida, I think. Or no, maybe did they go, I want to say maybe, no, he didn't go to Florida. I don't know where they went, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think there was something through his like fraternity when he was president. They had like a trip, and I want to say he went to like North Carolina also, or South Carolina or something like that. But then I want to say there was like one year where he went to Florida, but I know he went to Texas for sure. I know he went to Texas, but I don't know why I'm confusing that with Florida. But maybe that was me thinking that was when he flew, and it wasn't to Florida. It was either to North or South Carolina, I think. Possibly. Or maybe, yeah, I don't know. I have really no clue. Now that I'm thinking about it, I know for sure that he went to Texas because a couple of my aunts and uncles live in Texas. And so my mom was like, oh, Matthew can drive down there. We could drive down there and go and see everybody. But I'm like, that's a really long drive. Like, I'm okay with doing it though, just so long as like like it's gonna be, the trip is well worth the drive. So it's not like we're gonna be there for like 4 days, but it's gonna take us like 8 hours to drive, or 12 hours or whatever it is to like drive there, you know. So like that was the same thing too. Like when we went to Toronto, it was like, I think we were there for like 5 days, 5 to 7 days or something like that, but it was like a while, so it was worth the, you know, again, to the 9 hours or whatever it was to get there. But like my mom too, I think she's been to Washington. I think that she has been to Colorado maybe, or something like that. No, I think she has been to Denver, but I think it was for a layover going to Washington, possibly. Maybe, I don't remember. Like I said, I don't know everybody else's travel plans and where they've been. I have only been to Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and most recently when we went to St. Louis, now I've been to Missouri. And again too though, I've been out of the country, and I've actually only been to 4 states prior to leaving the country. That is like the extent of my traveling. I don't get to very many places. But honestly guys, I know that like every state is so unique and every state has so much stuff to see and things like that. But honestly, like there's some people that can live in one state for their entire life and never like experience anything outside of like just their hometown, you know? And so I think that like travel, you know, again to like leaving the states and going to different states and experiencing other things is important, but also to experiencing what's in your state and what your state has to offer as well, I think is also really cool and really important, you know. Like there are so many things to see, especially to even just like, again, because of where we're located, we're pretty close to Wisconsin, and we've traveled to Wisconsin tons of times. We go to Door County a lot, especially when I was like little. We went every single year, you know, so like, and that's like that's like a 4 or 5 hour drive, I want to say, something like that. It's kind of long. Even too when we were coming back from St. Louis, like there was a whole bunch of stuff to like see. Like they had like national park type stuff and like things like that that were there as well, that I was just like, oh wow, like that's really cool, like I'd love to visit that, you know. And again too, it's like a handful of hours away, but it's still in Illinois, and there's still, like I said, things to see and experience when you're here. I mean, obviously there's Chicago and we are an hour away from it, so we've been there a lot, but you know, that's obviously the big tourist destination and tourist trap. But you know, there's also lots of other things too that are, you know, like I said, interesting to see. There's forest preserves and national parks and you know, other, you know, like museums and like that kind of stuff that are in, you know, other parts of the state as well, that are, you know, can be very entertaining to go and see and experience and that kind of stuff. You know, even too when we went to Quincy for football, you know, this last fall, I mean, that was also 4 or 5 hours, honestly, because I felt like I never slept on the bus ride, but I felt like I was sleeping. Like it was just all like a blur to me. It felt like it actually went by, I feel like, a lot faster than it really did. But when my dad, because the other day I was like, oh, it was only like a 2-hour drive, and my dad was like, are you kidding? It was like 5 hours or however long it took us, or 6 hours or something. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. But like there's like things to see there too, because it's right along like the Mississippi River. It's not, I don't think, too far away from it, but you know, like, so I'm sure there's tons of tourist stuff to do over there. There was, and even just experiencing like that, like, you know, again to that town. I also stopped in Jacksonville, Illinois on our like layover to getting to Quincy, on our bus ride there. And that too, you know, was like a different place to like see. And also too, the football coach that was there that let us use the field when we were, you know, all the kids got out and like, you know, were doing kind of their walkthrough stuff and things like that. But he was telling us about the history of it and like of Jacksonville, Illinois, which I didn't know anything about. And he was telling us how he had some, like, I think one of the largest factories, or they were the largest distributor of records, like vinyl records at the time. But then the plant, I think a handful of years ago, shut down. And it's funny to me that like now though, vinyl is like back, kind of, you know. And so it's like weird that like now that it shut down, that gap closed a little bit, maybe they'd still like be in business and it would be providing a lot more for like the economy of, you know, the town and everything like that too, because that's like what he was kind of talking about, was how like it, you know, affected so many people that were living there because it closed down. But like, you know, if had that gap been a little bit closer and had they not closed as soon as, you know, they did or whatever, you know, they could have maybe sustain themselves because now vinyl's made such a big comeback. Like, you know, I didn't have vinyl records up until a couple of years ago, and, you know, everybody's, you know, like they're at Target, you know, like that kind of stuff. They're, you know, being distributed a lot more, available in a lot more places, you know, to the general public right now than just like collectors and stuff like that, like they were, you know, a handful of years ago, because nobody was really buying, you know, vinyl records anymore. But again, too, all of that kind of history and stuff like that plays into a lot of the different, you know, like I said, areas to explore and things like that as well, even in your own state, which is really cool, which is what my parents are doing because they're in Galena, and but they're really close to the border, but they're still in Illinois, and like I said, there's still those kind of places to see and experience and that kind of stuff as well. But me and Jack are here today, and we got up, we went on our walk this morning and everything like that. My parents didn't leave until like, I don't know, noon or 1 o'clock or something like that. But we did stuff, I guess, kind of. I edited a little bit today, got to some things. We actually watched a movie too, because like nobody's home, so nobody's gonna be like, hey guys, the recycling has to go out, the garbage has to go out. But I was telling you guys too how it's like funny when my parents aren't here, like the same thing too last year, like we're responsible, we remember things. Like Jack, he had football actually to go to today for like lifting, so he ended up going. He came back, and when he came back, he took the garbage and recycling out to the street, and I was like, oh, we have to remember to, like, you know, do that and everything, because tonight's garbage night, or tomorrow morning is. So I was like, oh, you know, like we have to remember that. And I didn't remember, but sure enough, like Jack, when he got home, he got home from work, he took the garbage and recycling out to the street. So you know, like he remembered that kind of stuff, and like, you know, so there's that added bit of responsibility that goes into, like, nobody else is going to be here to remind, you know, like my dad always remembers, like, oh, tomorrow's garbage day, don't forget to take, you know, the garbage and recycling to the street or whatever. Or sometimes he'll do it, you know. But the fact that they're not here, like, we remember to do it. I remembered to go and close all the windows today when it was raining, and I was scared it was gonna rain in all the windows, but it didn't, because I remembered to close them all. So, you know, we had all that other stuff too today that we had to kind of remember, take care of the guinea pigs, make sure the dogs got all taken care of, which, I mean, we kind of do that anyway, like the dogs especially. Like, we're responsible for really nobody else other than my dad. Sometimes on the weekend, me and Jack take care of the dogs almost fully anyway, so they're not like an added responsibility or an added thing we have to remember. We take care of them, you know, and like they're fully almost our responsibility, as far as like I feed them breakfast and dinner, and Jack takes them out during the day and stuff like that, and he, you know, checks to make sure that they have water, everything, you know, so we're always double checking that kind of stuff anyway. So it's not like, oh, we have to remember to do those things when my parents aren't here, because they're normally responsible for that. You know, so I just have to remind myself to go and check on the guinea pigs, because since they're in my parents' room, my mom checks on them a lot more than I do. Like, I'll remember, like, when I go in the fridge, I'll be like, oh, look, there's some spinach, I'll go and give them to guinea pigs or whatever. But like, I don't do it every single, like, you know, she goes upstairs, she goes to sleep, she checks on them before she goes to bed. When she wakes up in the morning, like, do they have water, do they have food, like, does their cage need to be cleaned, whatever, you know. I don't remember to do that stuff all the time, just because they're not in my room or in my public space that I check on them that often. But I'm gonna take a shower and get to bed. I'll see you guys all in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, we'd love if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye, guys.